Hello, Volarco here, and today I will be doing a tutorial on how to create a spiral distortion effect like the one that you see here. This is actually a new effect that I haven't seen done yet. I've seen some similar stuff, but nothing were like this. So it's not the best, but it's my first attempt at it. I'm not really gonna try too much, but yeah. Hopefully you can clearly see how it's like spiraling, and you can also control the amount of power, and it's all animatable. And yeah, so I'm just gonna start a new scene. If you want this scene, it is in the description below. You can go ahead and download it if you don't want to follow the tutorial. But yeah, I will just start a new scene, and I will call this tutorial. So now the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to use nodes, enable backdrop. I'm going to delete the render layers. I'm also going to make sure that I have the node wrangler add-on enabled, right there. And then I will go Shift A, input image to input our sample image, right? So here it is. This is simply from my 50 subs template. And what I did there to create this viewer node is I just held Control Shift and clicked. And this is why you need the node wrangler add-on. It is very useful for this one feature. So before we actually go ahead and make the circular distortion, we need to create a mask for that. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm just going to add a frame. So go to layout, frame, and I will go to the label, and I will call this mask, and I will add a color while I'm at it. You know, be fancy. Actually, no, screw color. I'm going to add a matte box mask, plug it in. I'm going to press Control Shift to see it. I'm also going to set this to be 100%. And I will just bump up this value to be 1.0 or higher, doesn't really matter. Then I'll set this to be 0.5, and I will increase the second number on the top to be 1. And then I will add a filter blur. I'm just going to press it inside the mask so that way it goes in. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mix node and just press it into the mask and move it so I have a lot of space to work with here. So with this blur node, I'm going to set it to be fast Gaussian, as this effect is actually very intense on the processing, so any speed saving would be ideal. And then I will add a converter math. I will subtract a value of 0.5, which is the default, and then I will multiply by 2. Alright, and what this is doing here with this subtract and multiply by 2 is it's subtracting half, so that way the bottom half becomes perfectly black, or the bottom bit, and then it's multiplying by 2, so that way the top stays at a perfect 1 value, since a black is 0 and a white is 1 in terms of computers, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a matte ellipse mask, and I will set the width and height to be relatively small. I will use 0.1 for the example, and this is also the same value which I used in the download. Then I will duplicate the blur node, put it here, and set it so that the X and Y have the same value of 500. Also make sure that the mask goes into the image. And then lastly, I will add a converter color ramp. I will plug the image into the factor. I will press Control Shift on this so it'll show up. And I'm going to set this to be constant, because what I want to do is I want to find the exact point where the middle turns white. So I'm just going to keep on dragging it closer and closer until that middle point becomes white. And what this is doing is this is finding the like most optimal position, right? So here it's 0.073. So I'm just going to set this to be 0.072, and, oh, sorry, wrong way, 0.074, and just like that it disappears. So if we just were to move this 1/1000th over, there would be a white spot again. So now I'm going to set it back to linear, so we have the highest dynamics from the center to the edge, and then I will add a color, mix, set the bottom thing into the factor, whoops, plug this into factor, and then I will plug the multiply into the bottom image and set this to be a black, right? And so just like that, here we have this mask, so to say. However, it's very loose on the edges if we look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this black. I'm actually just going to move it up a bit. That's a bit too much. 0.1. Oh, oops. 0.01. Okay. That is good. So now that we have the mask done, I'm going to remove the mix node. Now we can move on actually distorting the image. So we're going to create a node group for this, and it's actually relatively simple. I'm just going to press distort, rotate, set this to be 90, plug the mask into the input here, then add a filter, or I'm sorry, add a distort displace, plug the image here into the image, plug this into the Y, plug this into the Y, plug the original image output into the X, and then for vector, that's where we input the intensity. So if we go input value, and let's say we set the value to be like 1,000, right? What happens is that it rotates almost 90 degrees, right? The maximum for any one of these, the maximum actually is 1,009, right? That does not look like 90 degrees. What? I was just doing this a moment ago. Okay, well, apparently things change, but you can see we're starting to get rotation. I'm quite confused as to what's happening, but okay. But yes, I get the point. We're getting rotation, right? And if I increase the value, it'll rotate more and more. It works on large increases, so you're gonna have to set this to be some fairly high values in order to get much rotation, right? And so, but you see, the problem is that when we add too much rotation, these like black holes appear, right? And if I enable alpha, you see they're actually just holes of alpha where there's absolutely no data, right? And we want to avoid these, right? So then how do you get it to rotate more than like the amount of degrees which you would be able to get in one of these? Well, actually quite a simple solution. So now what we want to do is we want to select the rotate and displace, and we want to hit Control G. And what this will do is this will group them. So the first thing here is that we want to go to the properties panel. We want to remove X scale, and we want to plug in the image here, the first image, into the X scale, because this image here is the mask. The second image we will call image, and the last image we will call power, right? And just like that, we have this node group which I can rename to say like rotate or something, right? Actually, no, displace would probably be a more appropriate name. So displace, and now we have our displacement, right? But in order to get multiple of these, we need to add we need to make a chain of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and drag over the value right here, and this will create a node like this. I'm just going to move this right below power. Actually, no, I'm going to move it up to like here. Then I will shift drag over the mask input and drag that over the mask. Then I'll press Control Shift onto these tiny dots. Then I'll press Shift drag and move this over. And what we're doing is we're just creating long lines, and you'll see why these are important in a bit. Right, I'm just going to hold Control and drag over the viewer node since we no longer need that. So now what I can do is I can duplicate the displace node. Then I can shift drag there and there. I can plug this into the factor. This into the power, this into the mask, and output from the previous displacement into the image. And just like that, you can see we get double the rotation. And so I'm just going to do this 4 more times real quickly. And so now that we've done it, or now that I've done it 4 times, you see that it looks really weird when it's on like higher amount. So this is when you can either lower the power, right? And you see, as I lower the power, it starts to look a bit more normal. But it generally just looks more like a square-ish circle. It just looks weird. I don't like it. But what you can do, right, is that you can also take this white here and start increasing the value. And as you increase it, the amount of rotation decreases. However, it looks a lot more normal. But right, but you just need to play around with this on your own, see what works. But hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer, although I won't always be able to, quite obviously. Right? And yeah, for a general rule of thumb, think of each of these to be as 45 degrees of rotation. So this right here has the ability to rotate for 180 degrees. And just know that this effect is very intensive in terms of rendering, and it'll take a long time. So don't like use this too much in templates. And obviously, the more displaced nodes you have, the longer it's going to take. But yeah, so I'm going to be off now. Hopefully this helped. Download is in the description for my previous scene, and I will also leave a straw poll in the comments for my next tutorial. It has 1 vote right now, but I don't care. I'm still gonna advertise it. So yeah, goodbye.